There's a lot on the docket over in Washington, D.C. for investors to consider. Let's bring in Yahoo Finance contributor Kevin Cirilli. Kevin, great to get some time with you. Speaker Nancy Pelosi pushing for $33 billion in new aid for Ukraine. That's a no-brainer, right?
Absolutely. And in fact, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer also calling on the Senate to very quickly pass the $33 billion, Brian, that President Biden last week had announced that they would need in a supplemental aid funding package. Now, of course, Speaker Pelosi over the weekend doing a surprise trip to Kyiv where she met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, really trying to show that unified United States support for the Ukraine. I do anticipate, based upon the sources that I'm talking with here in Washington, D.C., that this ultimately will get passed. And quite honestly, it's a rare area where I think Republicans and Democrats have been unified.
Kevin, it's Julie here. Good to see you. A lot of focus right now on Ohio, where the president, former president, I should say, apparently made a bit of a gaffe regarding the candidate that he was supposedly endorsing.
You know, for all of this President Trump test of the endorsement, there's so much fodder in this Ohio race because he had backed J.D. Vance, who wrote Hillbilly Elegy and has now since really gotten the backings of tech entrepreneurs like Peter Thiel, who have poured millions of dollars into the Ohio Senate primary race that's on Tuesday. But Josh Mandel is the Republican Ohio State Treasurer. And so he's also seen as an ultra-conservative. So I think Ohio, to quote the great ones who have gone before us, Julie, this is going to be what all political observers are watching in terms of just the testing of the former president's clout and his savviness of Republican primaries. And so if J.D. Vance loses, polls suggest that he's kind of surged a little bit against Josh Mandel, then that will no doubt be a slight against the Trump endorsement.
And Kevin, you're also watching a key speech on China later this week.
Well, Secretary of State Tony Blinken is anticipated, if not this week, in the coming weeks, to give a speech outlining the Biden administration's policies for the U.S. China relationship. Now, so much going on with tech diplomacy, semiconductor chips. The administration wants to see that bill on President Biden's desk. They view it as a national security endeavor to bolster the U.S. supply chains and bolster the relationship between the United States and Taiwan. I was struck by something that Secretary Blinken said on Capitol Hill last week when he testified. He said, quote, "When it comes to Taiwan itself, we are determined to make sure that it has all the necessary means to defend itself against any potential aggression, including unilateral action by China to disrupt the status quo that's been in place now for many decades." Now, Secretary Blinken has made technology and cybersecurity a key focus of his tenure as the nation's top diplomat, in fact, expanding and creating in some points a bureau for cybersecurity and digital affairs. I would anticipate that that's going to be coloring many of the remarks and is the backdrop for many of the remarks around his anticipated remarks with the U.S.-China relationship,
which obviously is a very, very important one. So we'll be watching that closely. Thanks for flagging. Kevin Cirilli, good to see you. Yahoo Finance contributor joining us to talk all things D.C.